Hello and welcome back. This is a story about making friends as an adult and my own experience of making more friends right before I decided to leave the city that I live in. And so I hope that you will find some resonance with this, and I'm also really curious about what your experience has been making friends as an adult and how that has impacted just your social life in wherever you are. So let's dive in and start at the beginning, which is I have lived in Pittsburgh for 10 years in total, but 4 of those were as an undergraduate student. And then after I graduated, pretty much all of my friends left. Only one of my friends stayed in the city. Everyone else left. And then she ended up leaving a year after that. And so I basically had my entire friend group disappear after, within a year of graduating college. And that was really hard. I mean, to be totally honest, I think it's really difficult when everyone around you is leaving and moving on to bigger, brighter, shinier lives, so to speak. Everyone that I knew was moving to New York or San Francisco, and it just felt like they kind of had it all together. And I kind of felt like I didn't. And that's maybe a story for another time. But essentially, I was left trying to create a friendship group, or at least just a friendship at all, from scratch. And one of the challenges was that I was teaching at a yoga studio, and I felt really strongly that I wanted to have good boundaries between work and play. And I also wanted to respect the innate power dynamic that exists when you are a teacher or you are employed somewhere and someone else is coming in as a student, as a client, etc. And so there were really amazing people that came to my yoga classes who I really got along with. But me personally, I just didn't feel comfortable even potentially crossing that boundary to invite someone to get coffee or something, because I didn't want to abuse the power dynamic that was there. Mind you, I saw this happen around me. I absolutely saw that people did this all the time, but it rubbed me the wrong way, and I just would not have wanted to create a friendship that did not establish from a place of equality. And so I never did that. And I think that was also one of the challenges, is that at the time I was a freelance writer. I was predominantly working from home and also babysitting. And so my primary interactions were either with the kids I was babysitting or with the people that I was teaching class for at the studio. For those of you who love knowing about Tori is currently climbing onto my lap to make himself comfortable. I had to move him off earlier when I was recording, and he was not happy about it. He's back. So I really didn't have a great social circle, and I didn't really know what to do about that. I felt very isolated, and I think added on to that was just me not really knowing myself very well, not really knowing, okay, well, what kind of activities could I even get involved with outside of the work that I was doing. I also didn't really have the disposable income. There's so many factors, I think, that lead to us having a difficult time making friends as adults. I wasn't going to pay to sit in a coffee shop and do work all the time and potentially meet people who worked at the coffee shop because I didn't want to spend that kind of money on it. You know what I mean? But anyway, one of the most challenging things that happened, but also one of the best, was the pandemic. Because pretty much overnight, all of my normal sources of income that I had relied upon disappeared, specifically the yoga studio. And that was when I really started to take my own business more seriously. I was in the middle of my hypnotherapy certification, and so I decided I was going to focus on that as soon as I was certified. And it allowed me to create a business that was separate from the other communities I had been a part of, and that really supported me, which is amazing. I'm super happy about that. But there were still, several people who I knew or kind of knew of from my time as a yoga teacher. And one in particular had started coming to my classes, and we just got along so well. I started teaching yoga virtually because I love being a yoga teacher. I teach every Tuesday and Saturday, and I hope that I'll always get to do that because I love teaching yoga. But she came to that class, and after a year, I think, or maybe a year and a half of her coming to that class, she finally was like, hey, do you want to get coffee sometime? And I was like, I would love that. And I was so honored and so delighted because it felt so much more comfortable knowing that I wasn't the one initiating that relationship and that this was coming from her. I should also mention that I've definitely had like difficult experiences with people in the past who have maybe misinterpreted what my intentions were. And I was just like, you know what, let me just not take any action here. Let me like, if someone who comes to my class or someone who I know from somewhere else wants to be friends, let me let them initiate. So she did, and we just got along so well. And I told her, I was like, I told her exactly what I told you at the beginning of this, which is that I didn't want the dynamic to feel weird. I didn't want her to feel any pressure to be my friend just because she comes to my yoga classes. And I think being open and honest about that really helped, because she was like, oh my gosh, like I don't feel that. Like it felt very equal for both of us, which was amazing. And since then, she's just become such a dear friend of mine. And the bittersweet part of it is that our friendship really started to get going in this last year. And this was around the same time that I was already starting to think about leaving Pittsburgh. But I think that something about the potential of leaving also made me a lot more open to making connection. And I think this happens a lot. I hear a lot of people talk about this, where it's like you are kind of living your life and then suddenly you realize a big change is coming and you just want to get the most juice possible out of the life that you have now. And I think for me, that's what I have realized has happened as the world has started to open back up again in this new normal that we live in, is that I really want to be open to experiences. And because I know I was holding myself back from making any sort of connection with students in the past who came to my yoga classes, I know that that wasn't just an energy that was limited to that space. I think I personally was holding myself back from really exploring what kind of connections were possible in this city. But then when I realized that I might be leaving, that somehow freed me up to say, okay, well, why don't I just like go all out? You know, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. And so that's what I did. And really interestingly, that particular friendship, I mean, has been so wonderful. I know we'll continue to be friends. There's been another past yoga student who has surfaced, and we have started to cultivate a friendship, and other, past teacher who I didn't really know as well when I was teaching at the studio, who has reached out, and we've started to become friends. And I just realized like there's so much connection that is possible, but we have to be in the right place, either physically or emotionally or both, in order to receive that. And so why is this important to you? Well, the reason I want to share this is because I don't think you have to have something as major as leaving a city in order to change the way that you're showing up. I have no regrets, honestly, about having the boundaries that I did while I was working in the environment that I was. But I do think that now I can see how much more open I am because I'm no longer in that set space, and those issues around any kind of power dynamics or anything like that are no longer at play. And so now I realize, okay, well, if I want to be open to friendships, if I want to be open to any kind of connection, really, a lot of it is about putting yourself into the right scenarios. So in the past, what I really could have done was said, okay, obviously I want to create some sort of social connection. What can I start doing to make that happen? How can I have experiences outside of my work life where I can be open to meeting people? Like I could have taken a pottery class or a dance class or something, you know what I mean? But I don't think we always think about it that way. I think sometimes we're so stuck in the routine of our lives that we think, well, this is all I have access to. And so because this is all I have access to, this is all I'm going to be able to do, and this is it. This is what I got going on. But the truth is, we really do have so much more that's available to us often than we realize. And when we start to open ourselves up to that, I think the world and the universe just responds to that. Even something so simple, like I have started going to this bakery that I love, and I go like every week probably. I either get a loaf of bread or I get their baked goods. They have these amazing chocolate croissants and cinnamon rolls. If you're in Pittsburgh, it's Allegro Hearth Bakery. You have to go. And there's always the same woman who works there, I think, on Fridays. And so we kind of like recognize each other. You know what I mean? Like when you keep going to the same place and the person's like, oh yeah. And the owner even knows me by name. Like it's a long story. We'll get into that another day, but it's really nice. But the cashier, like we didn't really know each other. We would just kind of smile and be nice and be like, that kind of look of recognition, like, oh yeah, you're here again, like I'm seeing you again, sort of thing. And so just today, actually, she finally was like, hey, like, by the way, what's your name? And I was like, oh, I'm Larnie. And she was like, oh, I'm Allie. So shout out to you, Allie. Not that she would ever know I have a podcast or be listening to it, but it was just so special to have that experience and to realize that sometimes it is just as simple as introducing yourself. Like, you really don't have to be anonymous if you don't want to be. And you don't have to wait for some major thing to happen to do that. Like, I could have introduced myself to Allie like 2 months ago because I've been going to this bakery since like the beginning of the year, pretty much every week, you know, but I didn't. And so it's been a really interesting experience of reflecting for me to say, well, what are the ways that I close myself off to connection? And what are the ways that I open myself up to it? And is it possible for me to just stay open to connection? Is it possible for me to just live my life in this way? Even when I have found, you know, the next place that I choose to settle down in, even when I'm traveling, like, you know, over the summer as I'm going to be in different cities, different places, like, can I create a sense of familiarity and comfort there where I can really create a sense of belonging? Because I think being known is what we all really want. Not necessarily on some sort of large public stage, maybe, but I think we want to be seen. We want to be supported. We want to be in community. And when we go through life keeping ourselves closed off, whether that's to friendships or romantic relationships or just random encounters with your local bakery cashier, like, that makes us feel so small and insignificant and like our lives just don't matter. But the truth is, your life does matter. All of our lives matter. And there are people out there who want to know you and who want to support you and connect with you, even if it's just being someone who you know at your local bakery. Like, it doesn't have to be your soulmate that sees you in this way. It can be just the casual but wonderful and kind encounters that you have. And it's really made me think that the world would be such a different place if we were all more open to those loving, small connections, for just seeing each other, for saying, hey, like, what's your name? I've seen you here before. And just being like a kind human. It doesn't cost anything, right? Maybe it takes some bravery. Maybe it takes some courage. Maybe it takes you getting over whatever fears you have around someone like recognizing you. But that is all stuff that you can do. And you can take those small steps day by day to allow people to come into your life, because I really believe that when you are showing up from that place of being open, so many different experiences and opportunities come your way. And just for myself, I can say in the last year, I have enjoyed this last year in Pittsburgh more than any other year. And actually, it makes me emotional to think about it. And like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the friends that have come forward and the people who have shown themselves to want to be a part of my community. It's really, really priceless. And obviously it does make me sad about leaving. And I also remind myself that the beautiful thing about friendships or any kind of relationship is that you can redefine it wherever you are. You can have long distance friends. I have the majority of my friends are long distance, and that can be okay. So while I do wish that I had been able to create more community for myself here, I know that that most of them, you know, obviously the cashier girl at the bakery, like, I'm not going to see her when I leave Pittsburgh, but like the friends that are in my life now on a more consistent basis, I can keep in touch with them. And I can continue to redefine and evolve those relationships. But I just don't want you to hold yourself back from making connections if they're there. Like, if you know that you are in a place that you don't have a lot of social connections right now, that it's possible to make a change, that you don't have to wait. You don't have to make any major change necessarily, but that it's really in your hands to determine how do you show up in community? How do you show up for community? And frankly, there's so many ways. There's so many ways that we can do that. So that's my story for today. Those are some thoughts that I've been having. I would love to know if you have found something similar, if you were about to leave something, either like, leave a city or finishing your last year of school and like new connections came up out of nowhere, how that kind of felt, how you handled that. I'd love to know, because I really do think life is always ready to offer us opportunities. It's just up to us to be open to them. So I appreciate you stopping by and listening so much. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you go out into today, tomorrow, this next week, and really open yourself up to new connection, new possibilities. Big, big, big hugs. And big thanks for being here. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.